You guys know that I see and get to own most of the cool watches that I ever desire. This is one that I've been chasing down for well over a decade at this point, and I'm really happy to bring it to you today. I think one of the most important watches of the modern era, and you guys know that I don't speak a lot of praise of a lot of big brand stuff, but we're going to go into the story a little bit. This is the Lange pour le Merite Tourbillon, the original version, first introduced in 1994. And this particular one is in yellow gold with the blued hands. This is kind of the quintessential pour le Merite Tourbillon version, and it's the one that Walter Lange himself wore daily, I believe. So let's dig into this watch. Now, I guess I'm not sure the actual definition of vintage. I heard somewhere it's 25 years old or older, but then I've heard different things. But in any case, this is bordering on vintage, and it is now, I guess, 25 years old. Introduced in 1994, this watch is important for several reasons. To Lange, it represents a statement to the watch world, and it is kind of a foundational piece that set out a lot of themes that the company then followed through on over the next, now 25 years. And there were a lot of influential things to the watch world as a whole. So to fully understand this watch, you have to know a little bit of the history of Lange and Söhne. So they were the greatest German watch brand for quite a long time. And then, as you know, Germany, and in particular East Germany, Glashütte, which is the town, by the way, my German's horrible, just like my French is horrible, and my Japanese in one of my last videos is horrible, so I don't need your comments about my mispronunciation, but here we go. Glashütte is a little town just outside of Dresden, which is in what was formerly East Germany. And so anyway, in the 40s, the Nazis come, they take all the German watch companies and they force them to make basically just pilots' watches and movements. I actually have a Lange, it's called the BR pilot's watch from that era. Maybe I'll do a video with both of these showing the differences, which is everything, one day. But in any case, Nazis, and then you have the Communist Party coming in, taking East Germany, taking all of the watch companies, rolling them into one state-owned conglomerate, and basically killing the entire watch industry in Germany. At that point, Walter Lange was able to get out and live in West Germany, but he was the kind of heir to this amazing brand that had been decimated. So in 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. 1990, Walter Lange and Günter Blümlein, who's really one of the most fascinating and important executives in the modern watch industry, they come together to relaunch Lange and Söhne, which itself is its whole own story. I mean, this could be an amazing movie, this whole story. And there's a really good write-up online on Quillenpad. If you guys are interested, you can check out that gives a good timeline of this. But it's got everything. It's got a family business, tragedy, Nazis, Socialist Party, triumph in the end, all this stuff. In any case, they rebuild the brand in 1990. By 1994, they're ready to unveil their watches, and they unveil 4 watches, and the crown jewel of the collection is this watch I have in my hands, which is the Pour le Merite Tourbillon. Now, a lot of people say, oh, Pour le Merite, that sounds French, and yes, it does sound French, but basically the Pour le Merite was a Prussian order in the 18th century, and it was basically this extremely high honor that actually none of the Langes ever received, but they wanted to give a name that signified the absolute utmost of quality and respect to their highest watch, and so that's where that name comes from and why it sounds French instead of German. So the idea with this watch was to make a statement that German watchmaking was back and that it could be produced and that they could produce watches at a quality level that was as high or higher than the Swiss. And so they used a tourbillon, which at the time was still quite rare in wristwatches. Now we see them all the time. But back then it was really in only the highest of the highest end pieces and produced not very often. And in addition, they used a chain and fusee, which is a bit hard to see, but you can kind of see it through that window there. And if you want a total kind of technical write-up on what a chain and fusee is, check out my Breguet chain and fusee tradition tourbillon review, where you can really see it well, and I go into the intricacies of it. But anyway, at this point, this hadn't been used in a watch in about 100 years. Lange was famous for their chain and fusee pocket watches back in the day, and so this kind of was a beautiful poetic thing, and it was extremely technically difficult to produce. I think there's something like 630 individual components just in the tiny little chain there. So this was really the tour de force. It has some of the best finishing that you'll ever see in a wristwatch, certainly from a big brand. Normally only the tiny little indie guys who can spend all of their time on one watch get even close to this level of quality, and it really shows. Now, that is one of the extremely influential parts of this watch. To this point, in 1994, there weren't a lot of beautiful movements around. In fact, most watches, or at the very least many watches, even at very high quality, still had solid backs. Movements were not designed to be extremely beautiful. Now people, when they're designing a new watch movement, think about the aesthetics of the movement, but that wasn't really done much at this time. And also finishing at this level was just very, very uncommon. It wasn't something that the market focused on so much. And so this was sort of, this set the standard to come, and it really put the Swiss on notice of, this is the kind of quality that's going to be necessary to compete at this level from now on. In addition, the tourbillon itself, this really was one of the foundational watches that established the tourbillon as the thing that a brand had to have in its flagship model to show its quality. Now, another cool just bit of trivia with this watch that is kind of neat is all the people that combined to make this. So I've already mentioned Gunther Blumlein, Walter Lange, but in addition, for technical expertise on this chain, they went to Renaud and Papi. So you have now Giulio Papi, and of course you know them from my Audemars Piguet and Richard Mille videos. But the main watchmakers that were there and responsible for this piece at the time were the Gronefeld brothers. So you have Tim and Bart Gronefeld as well with their DNA inside of this particular watch. So really, it's a pretty spectacular piece of history that came together for this entire thing. It is very vintagey looking and feeling. The case is 38.5 millimeters by 10 millimeters thick. It's got sort of perfect proportions. You've got this beautifully proportioned tourbillon cage, beautiful finish all around. The yellow gold gives it a kind of warm and vintagey feel, and then these blue hands just shine out, so it's super easy to read. And here you've got seconds, here you've got power reserve. The power reserve is pretty cool. It's not very long. It's only 36 hours, see? But what's cool about that is that I love the way that it goes up when you wind it. It sort of moves very quickly through the full winding, it's kind of a very direct feeling to the power reserve, which is pretty awesome. And the winding feels great. The crown feels amazing, even for this example, which very well may not have been serviced in the last 25 years, but it runs and feels totally perfect. The dial and font and print and everything is kind of has become very signature Lange, but this is sort of where it all started. And really, you just have it's kind of a perfect watch. It's like a platonic ideal of a watch. I like to take dressy watches and put them on a little bit more casual straps. So I've got this right now on this brown suede strap that dresses it down a little bit, but I think it makes it kind of interesting. Of course, normally this would have come on black or brown croc. Maybe blue also would look cool, but really I could see this going great as a dress watch. You know, if you wear a button-down shirt and a coat or a suit every day, this would be awesome. But also really as a jeans and t-shirt watch. I love kind of yellow gold vintagey looking stuff with jeans and like a white t-shirt is pretty awesome. So this one's on the Lange deployant buckle. I've shown you the movement, but we can dig into a little bit more. Of course, you've got this engraving on the balance cock. Let me see if I can get in here a little bit. So yeah, a lot of different finishes, extremely, extremely high quality. You've got the blued screws, the gold chatons, again, a little window into the chain and fusee right there in the middle. And here you can see all the way through, there's my finger, through the tourbillon cage from the back, and of course from the front too, although you would mostly not have light. So yeah, tip, top notch stuff here. So let me show you the watch on the wrist. You can see it's pretty perfect. Very comfortable to wear, very legible. You really can't fault the proportions of this watch anywhere. It's just kind of the way a watch should be. So honestly, I've been looking for one of these for 15 years. I've wanted one of these. I've wanted to wear one, just kind of feel, it always seemed to me to be this kind of perfect object. And in person, it really, really is. So I'm excited to have it in here. I love the history wrapped up in this watch. This is what is now a big brand and a foundational sort of player in the modern watch industry. But this is where it all started. And this is this was a real startup watch. This is kind of an indie watch. I guess this is why I like it. But it has that independent spirit. These people who, this was do or die. It had to be great, or none of this would have happened. And luckily, it was great. So here it is. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.